Waiting at the door. I have been standing by the front door all day, my heart pounding a nervous rhythm in my chest every time I sense a movement or a shadow beyond the frosted glass. The clock on the wall in our cramped entryway ticks just a shade too loudly, as if it, too, is part of some grand conspiracy to unsettle me. Outside, the sun slides in and out of clouds that threaten rain, casting changing, restless shapes on the front steps. Despite having sat down at least 3 times to try to read the newspaper or glance at my phone, I find myself snapping back to my feet as soon as the old wooden boards of the porch squeak. More than once, I've practically lunged for the door, ready to greet her, only to realize the wind or my own anxious mind conjured a false alarm. The dryness in my throat hasn't gone away in hours. My tongue keeps sticking to the roof of my mouth. I can't seem to swallow properly. My hands are so clammy that the phone slips in my grip whenever I check it. And I check it constantly, every few minutes, if not more. I'm waiting for a text, a call, or some sign from my wife. Why am I so nervous? On any other day, if she were late, I might be a little concerned. Wonder if she'd hit traffic or got caught in an impromptu meeting. But today, there's something else tearing me up from the inside. Today, I have a reason to believe that everything I thought I knew might be crumbling at my feet. It started with a string of strange text messages I received early this morning. The first one arrived just as I woke up, before I even had my coffee. I glanced at my phone, expecting an innocuous notification about the weather or maybe an email from work. Instead, there was a text from an unknown number. Keep your marriage under wraps for a while. She doesn't want complications. My first reaction was confusion. Who would write something like that? And what did it even mean? To keep my own marriage under wraps. I shrugged it off as a wrong number at first, but the second message arrived less than 20 minutes later. She asked me not to cheat in front of you, says you're too fragile. My heart hammered a quick double beat when I read that. It sounded so bizarre, so accusatory. Who was this she? Of course, I knew. My mind jumped there even before I could rationalize otherwise. My wife. But why would my wife be asking someone not to cheat? In front of me. It made no sense, because we've always had a stable relationship. We've been together for nearly 17 years. We've faced rough times, sure. Everyone does. But never once had I suspected something like this. That didn't stop the messages from coming. Another arrived around mid-morning, then 2 more around noon. There was no direct admission that it was definitely my wife they were talking about, but the hints were strong enough to rattle me to my core. They specifically mentioned the little jokes you two used to make about cheating, as if the person texting me had overheard our private banter from years ago, and who else in the world would know about that, besides the 2 of us? Now, in the late afternoon, the sun drifting behind the tall pines in our neighbour's yard, I'm glued to the front door. The text messages were so unnerving that I couldn't focus on anything else all day. I should have gone to work myself, but I called in sick, pacing the living room, checking the driveway, rereading the cryptic words on my phone until my vision blurred. There is a coldness in the pit of my stomach, a creeping dread that maybe I'm about to discover a part of my wife I never knew. I keep telling myself that it has to be a prank, a misunderstanding. The number could be from some jerk with too much time on their hands, or maybe a jealous ex of hers from long before we got serious. But as the hours have crawled by, my mind conjures scenarios more sinister and outlandish. I glance once more at the blackened phone screen, as if doing so will magically produce answers. It's blank. No new messages. My eyes dart to the digital clock on the kitchen oven across the open floor plan. It's nearly 6 in the evening now. She's late. Very late. 2. The weight of memory can be a soothing balm or a jagged knife, depending on context. Right now, my own memories of her, of us, feel like both. I try to distract myself by drifting into recollections of how we met, the circumstances that led me to fall for her. I was 25, still stumbling through life with minimal savings, uncertain about my career path. She was 22, bright-eyed, full of an optimism that felt infectious to anyone who spent more than 5 minutes in her presence. I'd recently quit an underwhelming office job and took a temp gig at a movie theatre in a busy mall. That was where I first saw her. She walked in wearing a simple pair of jeans and a short, sleeved top with a pattern of cartoon cats. Her hair was braided over one shoulder, but what really caught my eye was her laughter. Something on the overhead screen had amused her. A trailer for an upcoming film, maybe, and she let out this vibrant, genuine laugh that lit up the dull, popcorn-scented corridor. I remember I actually stared. I must have looked ridiculous, holding a large soda in one hand and her receipt in the other, frozen in place. She teased me gently about it. I turned red but managed some awkward jokes that, to my own surprise, made her laugh even harder. By the end of our first conversation, she handed me her phone. "Put your number in," she said, sounding perfectly self-assured. "Maybe you can tell me what time the next show starts, or we can do something else entirely." We clicked in a matter of days, then weeks. When we started dating, she'd tell me about her parents. Strict about certain things, loose about others. They objected not just to our age difference, some measly 3 years, but also to our immediate closeness. They thought we were moving too fast, but I found a spark in her that I'd never found in anyone else. I thought, and still think, she found something similar in me. Over time, we built a life. We moved into a modest apartment near her first real job. She studied social work and thrived on helping people. I was in between career goals, dabbling in side projects, living off tips from the part-time job at the theatre. Eventually, I landed a more stable position in marketing. By the time we were both relatively settled, years had passed and her parents no longer complained. We were adults living together. As far as I knew, we were happy. In those early years, we did joke about cheating, though it was never serious. Maybe it was our way of addressing a common fear in relationships, turning it into a farce to defang it. She would say something like, "If you ever catch me in bed with someone else, just take a picture. No one will believe you otherwise." I'd respond with something equally outlandish, like, "Well, I guess we'll audition for a reality TV show if that ever happens." We'd laugh it off, because that scenario seemed so improbable for us. Now, those old jokes haunt me, because the texts mention that exact banter. They mention how nobody ever gets caught on film these days. Not really, that people are actually braver about cheating than we realize. It's as if someone is mocking me with my own words. And the reason I can't just dismiss this as a random troll is that so few people would know about those private jokes. We hardly ever told them to friends. They were mostly pillow talk, whispers in bed. I break out of my reverie when the porch boards do indeed squeak this time, quite loudly. I rush to the door, peering through the peephole. My heart leaps, only to sink again when I see it's not her. It's the neighbour's cat. The orange tabby we often feed leftover chicken to is rubbing itself against the porch column. No sign of my wife's car. No footsteps, no shape approaching the door. I close my eyes, pressing my forehead against the wood. Get a grip, I tell myself. She could just be stuck in traffic. Maybe her phone died. There's a perfectly normal explanation for all of this. But my mind cycles back to the same question. Why would some unknown number text me that she asked them not to cheat in front of me? What does that even mean? 3. The growing dread. I decide I can't just stand at the door, so I force myself to walk into the living room. The house is quiet, except for the subtle hum of the air conditioning. I push aside the curtains to glance at the street. A car passes by, its headlights flashing across my living room wall, but it continues on. The living room is scattered with little reminders of her. A crocheted blanket she bought at a charity sale is draped over one arm of the couch. Stacked near the TV are the psychological thrillers she loves to watch on Sunday nights. The coffee table has 2 glass coasters, One sports a ring from last night's tea mug. There's a photo of us on a side table from about 5 years ago at a friend's wedding. She's laughing in the photo, her eyes crinkling with genuine mirth, while I stand next to her in a slightly ill-fitting suit, looking half awkward, half adoring. I realize I'm gripping that photo too tightly. I put it down, noticing that my hand is trembling. The quiet hum in my ears intensifies. I sink onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. I want to call her phone again, but I've already done that 6 times. Each attempt rang until voicemail, but I never left a message. What would I say? Honey, is it true you're cheating on me? Let me know, thanks. I think about texting her directly, but the idea ties my stomach in knots. If those weird messages are just nonsense, I'd look like a lunatic. If they're not nonsense, texting her about it might spook her. Is that what I want? Do I want the truth, no matter how ugly it might be? My gaze lands on the silent TV screen. Sometimes I wish I could watch my own life from the outside, as if it were a show. Then I could spot the obvious clues that the protagonist is missing, or maybe see if the villain was introduced in a cryptic cameo early on. But real life never unfolds so neatly. I check my phone once more. No new messages. 4. A flashback to the theatre. My sense of dread is so overpowering that I decide I need a distraction. I wander into the kitchen, open the fridge, stare blindly at the contents left of a casserole, a half-empty jug of orange juice, some fruit. None of it appeals to me. I close the fridge again, realizing I have no appetite. Leaning against the countertop, I drift back to the day we met, filling in details I'd forgotten until now. It was a Tuesday afternoon, unremarkable except for how scorching hot it was outside. The movie theatre was nearly empty since school was out for summer break, and the midday show times were less crowded. I was bored, fiddling with the registers, wishing for a better job. She appeared, coming in from the glaring sunlight. Wearing sunglasses she immediately pushed up onto her head. The moment she stepped inside, she let out an exaggerated sigh of relief at the air conditioning, then let out a laugh. Pure, carefree. It caught my attention like a magnet. I remember I made a joke about how the air conditioner was my only companion all day. She shot back with, "Well, you can't be that lonely if you've got a friend like that." Then I handed her a ticket for a documentary she wanted to see, and she teased me about not being busy enough for her to make me lose my composure. After the show ended, she found me again. I was wiping down the counter, preparing to close one of the registers. She stood there, almost shy but not quite, and I couldn't help but notice the way she tilted her head when she spoke, a small, curious motion like a bird. I asked if she liked the movie, and she shrugged, saying it was interesting but she wished it had been longer. We ended up talking for 15 minutes, maybe 20, until she said, "So, do you want to drive me home? My friend bailed, and it's too hot to walk." I wasn't in the habit of offering rides to strangers. But she didn't feel like a stranger. She felt like someone I'd known all my life. That's the moment I keep circling back to. The trust she showed in me, the immediate closeness we shared. She told me later she wasn't normally that forward or relaxed with men she'd just met, but something about me put her at ease. Now, I'm left to wonder if any of that was real or if she's changed into someone else entirely. 5. Impulses and worries. A sudden impulse seizes me. I decide to call her workplace. She works in social services, specifically a department that handles intake for homeless assistance and short-term counselling. I look up the main office number. My hands still shaky, and dial. A pleasant but harried-sounding receptionist answers. "Hi, I'm trying to reach my wife," I say, introducing myself. She works there. I haven't been able to contact her today, and I'm worried. The receptionist, sounding equally concerned, puts me on hold. I stare at the phone, bracing myself. Either they'll say she's there, or they'll say she left hours ago, or maybe she didn't come in at all. That last possibility is the one that twists a new knot in my gut. Finally, the receptionist comes back. "Your wife's not at her desk right now," she says. "But she's definitely in the building. She might be in a meeting or stepped out for a moment. Would you like me to take a message?" Confusion floods me. So she is at work. A small wave of relief washes over me. She's not gallivanting around with some secret lover after all. But if she's at work, why hasn't she answered her phone? Why are there text messages telling me she doesn't want me to see her cheating? It's contradictory. But maybe, I tell myself, those texts have nothing to do with reality. Maybe everything is fine. I leave a quick message asking her to call me as soon as she can. Then I hang up. My relief is only partial. Something's still off. I shouldn't have to call her office to confirm her whereabouts. Especially not on a day I'm receiving bizarre messages accusing her of cheating. I slump back onto the couch and glance at the front door again. The day is slipping away. The light has taken on that heavy golden hue that preludes sunset. She'll be home soon, I think. That's normal. She's just a little later than usual, maybe. But the text messages keep creeping into my mind. If she's truly been at work all day, who is behind them? 6. The house and its shadows. To keep myself from going crazy, I decide to tidy the living room. It's not a complete disaster, but there's dust on the TV stand, a few empty cups on the coffee table, and some mail scattered across the sofa cushions. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind engaged is better than pacing like a caged animal. I straighten out the mail first, sorting the junk from the important letters. My focus snags on a credit card statement in her name. Normally, we have no secrets about finances, but for some reason, I am drawn to it with an anxious curiosity. The envelope is unopened. Temptation whispers that I should open it, but I hold back. That would be a breach of trust, wouldn't it? Then again, it's hardly worse than suspecting she's lying about her entire day. I set it aside, deciding not to cross that line. At least not yet. I gather up the cups, rinse them in the kitchen sink, and wander around with a rag to dust the surfaces. It's only as I circle back near the front door that I realize how silly this all is, me dusting furiously, while my marriage might be shattering. But in moments of distress, people often cling to the trivial to anchor themselves. The quiet is so intense that when the doorbell rings, my heart nearly explodes out of my chest. Racing to the door, I fling it open, breathless, only to find a package on the step and a delivery driver hurrying back to his truck. I let out a sigh that's half relief, half disappointment. Still no sign of my wife. I pick up the package. It's addressed to her and bring it inside. The return label is from some boutique. I place it on the kitchen table, near a small vase of daisies she brought home last week. And I notice with a pang that the daisies are wilting, their petals slightly brown at the edges. I haven't watered them since she put them there. She was the one who always took care of these small domestic tasks, watering flowers, refilling sugar bowls, tidying the pantry. We'd slip easily into a routine over the years, sometimes taking each other's contributions for granted. Now, staring at those fading flowers, I feel the sting of guilt for letting them wither. Then a stab of paranoia. What else in our life might be withering without me noticing? Could it be that our relationship was slowly dying too, and I only just realized it because of these confounding messages? 7. Unraveling the past jokes, I sink onto one of the kitchen chairs, letting the last shards of daylight slide across the floor. I realize I'm remembering all those cheating jokes we used to make. Actually, it might have been me who started them. I used to say, in the age of smartphones, who'd be dumb enough to cheat? You'd get caught in a heartbeat. She'd laugh and say, people cheat hoping not to be caught. That's the thrill. Or maybe they just don't care if they do get caught. At the time, it was just idle speculation, like discussing an improbable movie plot. We'd never do that, I told myself. We love each other. Over time, that comedic banter faded. Our relationship matured. We overcame bigger issues, job layoffs, a cross-country move for a better opportunity, even a minor health scare for me a few years back. Infidelity was the last thing I worried about. Why would I, when we'd built such trust over so many years? Yet here I am. The phone vibrates against the table, and I snatch it up instantly, my pulse racing. It's not her. It's a text from the unknown number again. My breath catches in my throat as I open it. Not long now. If you don't keep your mouth shut, we'll do it in front of you. My eyes widen in shock. We'll do it in front of you. My stomach churns. Is this person trying to torment me, or is there some twisted intention behind this message? It's the first time the texts have been even remotely threatening, and the ambiguity is terrifying. I type a quick response with shaking fingers. Who is this? Leave me alone. I hit send. There's no immediate answer. I stare at the phone, waiting, counting the seconds. None of this feels real. It's like a nightmare you can't wake from, the kind where you try to scream, but no sound emerges from your mouth. If she is at work, does she know about these texts? Is she in on it? Or is someone else using her name, humiliating me with these insinuations? 8. The sun sets, and darkness rises. Nightfall comes swiftly, as it often does at this time of year. The warm glow from the living room lamp hardly cuts through the darkness outside. Every car that passes by, every crackle of leaves in the wind, sets my nerves on edge. I'm about to head upstairs and possibly pace in the bedroom when headlights sweep across the windows. My heart jolts, and I rush to the door. Through the side window, I see her car pulling into the driveway. Relief and dread churn in me simultaneously. I open the door before she even has a chance to knock. Her figure is outlined by the porch light. Slim, slightly stooped from apparent exhaustion. She's wearing a navy blue blazer over a light blouse, the outfit she usually reserves for important days at the office. Even from here, I can see how tired she looks, how her hair is slightly mussed from the day's stress. "You're home," I say, my voice almost cracking with the weight of everything that's been piling up inside me. I've been really worried. She offers a small, wary smile, stepping inside and dropping her keys into the dish near the door. I know. I'm sorry. Everything took longer than I expected at work. Then there was a traffic jam on my way back. Are you okay? You look pale. I close the door behind her, and the latch clicks with a heavy finality. My eyes search her face. I see nothing but fatigue, concern for me, and love. Love I've relied on for so many years, but I can't entirely push away the suspicion. Is that worry real? I wonder, or is she just very, very good at hiding something? You didn't text or call, I managed to say, trying not to sound accusatory. I called your office, but they said you were in a meeting. Her brow furrows. I left my phone on my desk most of the day. I got swamped. You know how it is when something big happens at the shelter. We had a new group come in, and I was putting out fires left and right. By the time I remembered to check my phone, it was practically dead. I'm sorry. Right, I say, swallowing. The dryness in my mouth hasn't gone away. Look, there's something we need to talk about. She glances at the suitcase in the hallway, one we never fully put away after our last trip, and then shakes her head. I'm too tired for big talks, she whispers, stifling a yawn. Can it wait until morning? I barely slept last night. The heaviness in my chest intensifies. Part of me wants to confront her immediately, to shove my phone in her face and demand answers about the messages. Another part of me sees how exhausted she is. This internal conflict paralyzes me. 9. First confrontation, no. I say softly, shaking my head. It can't wait. She pauses, meets my gaze. All right, she says slowly. What's going on? I take a step back, lean my weight against the arm of the couch for support. I've been getting these texts all day from an unknown number. I start. They're saying things like, keep your marriage a secret. They claim you're telling someone else not to cheat in front of me. It makes it sound like. I can't bring myself to say it directly. Like she's having an affair. Her expression shifts from tired concern to outright confusion, and then mild annoyance. Texts. Saying that about me. That's ridiculous. I'd never ask anyone to keep our marriage a secret. You know how proud I am to call you my husband. Why would anyone say those things? Maybe it's just a prank. Could be spam or a scam. I thought so at first, I admit, glancing down at the phone I've set on the coffee table. But they specifically mention details that only we would know. Like how we used to joke about cheating when we were younger. Her eyes widen slightly at that, but she recovers quickly. I see. She wets her lips, looking at me carefully. Look, I wasn't sending any messages like that. I was at work. If you call my colleagues, they'll tell you I was practically chained to my desk or bouncing between meetings. If someone is pulling a prank, they might have overheard those jokes from somewhere else. Maybe an old friend we told, or a coworker I used to talk to. Who knows? People can be cruel. Her explanation is plausible, but the tension in my chest doesn't ease. I can't forget the last text that said, "We'll do it in front of you if you don't keep your mouth shut." That's not just referencing some old joke. That's a threat. I open my mouth to mention the threat, but she rubs her temple and says, "Look, I'm sorry this happened to you." It sounds scary, especially if they know personal details. But I swear it's not coming from me. I love you, and there's no secret I'm hiding, okay? She places a hand on my shoulder, her gaze searching mine. Let's not let some anonymous troll drive us crazy. I want to believe her. I want to let go of my paranoia and let her comforting tone soothe me. But part of me wonders if she's telling the truth. If so, who's behind this? And if not, how did she learn to lie so convincingly? 10. Late dinner and unanswered questions. Despite the gnawing tension, I can't help but feel relief at her presence. The day has been so surreal that having her physically here, in our home, is almost enough to make me think the texts might be nothing more than a cruel prank. Maybe that's all it is. We slip into a semblance of a normal routine. She takes off her blazer, drapes it over the back of a kitchen chair. I notice small damp spots under her arms, sweat stains from a tense day. She pours herself a glass of water and drinks half of it in one go. Then she sighs, checking the fridge for something to eat. "There's leftover casserole," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can heat it up if you want." She nods gratefully. "Thank you. I'm starving." I pop the dish into the microwave, pushing the button and half, listening to its hum. She leans against the kitchen counter, eyes fluttering closed as if she might pass out from exhaustion. I notice faint circles under her eyes, the small lines at the corners that have become more pronounced in recent years. She looks older than the carefree girl I fell in love with, but in a way that's layered with experiences, shared joys and struggles. Seeing her vulnerability stirs a wave of protective tenderness in me. Maybe I owe it to her, and to us, to hold off on assuming the worst. But how can I ignore the messages entirely? When the microwave beeps, I hand her the reheated casserole. We sit at the small kitchen table, the one where we've shared countless meals. She takes a bite, closes her eyes, and hums with satisfaction. "This is good," she says, stifling a yawn. "Did you cook this earlier?" "I made it last night," I reply. "I wasn't sure if you'd want it, but I guess I got lucky." She gives a half smile, but the tiredness overshadows it. The silence that settles between us is thick. Normally, we talk about our days, compare notes about who did what, share small stories about workplace dramas or comedic anecdotes. Tonight, the conversation is strangled by the unspoken presence of those texts. I clear my throat. "Are you sure you don't know anyone who might be messing with us?" I ask gently. "Any old exes or people you turned down? Maybe a coworker who's jealous of you?" She shakes her head, looking genuinely puzzled. "I've been so busy these last few months. I barely have time for my own life, let alone for old drama or feuds. Trust me, I can't think of anyone who'd do this." Her phone, which she's placed on the table, lights up with a notification. We both jump slightly. She picks it up, squints at the screen, and then groans. "Work email. Some last, last-minute request for the morning. I'll have to respond soon. Sorry. I release a breath I didn't realize I was holding. So it's not a text from the unknown number. I'm half disappointed, half relieved. 11. A night of turmoil later, as we climb the stairs, she suggests we just sleep on it. She insists that once we rest, maybe things will be clearer tomorrow. She does look exhausted, so I don't push it further, but sleep doesn't come easily for me. In the bedroom, she changes into comfortable pajamas, slides under the covers, and is practically asleep in minutes. I, on the other hand, lie awake, staring at the shadows on the ceiling. My mind replays the texts, that ominous threat, the sense that something is deeply amiss despite her assurances. At one point, around midnight, I reach for my phone and scroll through the messages again, hoping maybe something about them will make sense a second or 10th time around. They still read as cryptic and terrifying. If you don't keep your mouth shut, we'll do it in front of you. My stomach churns. What if they mean they'll carry on an affair openly, humiliating me? Or is it something darker? I glance at her sleeping form. She's breathing lightly, one arm flung over her forehead. The pale glow from the streetlight outside falls across her face, highlighting the curve of her cheek. She looks peaceful, angelic even. There's no sign of guilt, fear, or malicious intent in that resting expression. Part of me wonders if I'm the one who's lost my grip on reality. Eventually, I drift into a restless sleep, plagued by nightmares in which faceless figures laugh at me while my wife stands at a distance, silent and unreachable. 12. Morning uncertainty. The next morning dawns cold and grey. Rain spatters against the bedroom windows. I wake to find her already up, bustling around, presumably getting ready for work. My head aches from the poor sleep, and a knot sits in my gut that a strong coffee won't untangle. I head downstairs and see her in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a travel mug. She's dressed in a simple blouse and skirt, her hair pinned up. Tension lines her face. Despite having slept, she doesn't look more rested than before. She says softly. I'm sorry about last night. I was just so tired. You okay? I didn't sleep well, I admit, walking over to the coffee pot to pour myself a mug. I can't get those messages out of my head. She sets her travel mug on the counter. Me neither, she confesses, surprising me. I'd expected her to brush it off again. I was thinking about it during breakfast. If you want, I can talk to some friends in IT or social work security, see if there's a way to trace the number. Or maybe you should just block it. Blocking it won't give us any answers, I say, sipping my coffee. But maybe your friends can help, I pause, swallowing the lump in my throat. I need to know the truth. She nods, a mixture of sympathy and frustration in her eyes. I get it. Let's figure this out, okay? I'll be home earlier tonight. We can have dinner, talk it through. Outside, the rain intensifies. She checks her watch size and looks at me with a hint of sorrow. I really have to go. There's a big staff meeting I can't miss. I promise I'll text you when I'm on my break. I nod, though the tightness in my chest remains. As she heads for the door, I blurt, I love you. She turns back, a brief flicker of warmth crossing her face. I love you too, she says, before stepping out into the grey, wet morning. The door closes with a click that echoes in my mind like the lid of a chest you're about to lock away forever. 13. Searching for clues once she's gone, I'm alone with my thoughts again. The idea of carrying on as if it's a normal day feels impossible. No, I decide. I need to do something. I settle on a plan. If she's telling the truth, then these messages must be coming from some external source. Someone with ill intent or a cruel sense of humour. Maybe I can find a clue in our phone records or scurrying my own texts beyond just these anonymous ones. I log onto our joint phone plan's website. We share an account, though we each have separate lines. Scrolling through the call log, I find my number. I see the unknown text listed, but the site only shows the number and timestamps, no actual content. That doesn't help much. Then I check her line. She doesn't have any suspicious incoming or outgoing calls, at least not to that same unknown number. Of course, that could be hidden if she's using another phone, or if the messages are being arranged from some secret app. I realize that suspicion is creeping up on me again, fueling the paranoid scenario that maybe she's orchestrating this. But if she is, she's either unbelievably good at covering her tracks, or there's a simpler explanation I'm missing. I decide to take a step I'm not entirely proud of. I rummage through the desk in our small home office, looking for anything that might hint at secrets. My hands feel clammy again. I find old receipts, utility bills, some random postcards. Nothing stands out as evidence of wrongdoing. Before I can stop myself, I open her desk drawer. She usually keeps it locked, but I remember seeing the key in the little bowl of miscellaneous items near the window. The lock clicks open, and I hold my breath. Inside are mostly personal things, a small diary from years ago, a stash of pictures, old greeting cards. My heart pounds as I rifle through them. The diary is from the time we moved to this state, describing her excitement at starting a new job, her love for me, her anxieties about making friends. Nothing about any secret affair. I exhale, partly relieved, partly ashamed for snooping. I almost wish I could find something incriminating, some clue to make sense of the madness. Yet I also dread discovering a betrayal. That's the twisted contradiction I'm stuck in. I return everything to its place, lock the drawer, and silently promise myself not to violate her privacy again. But if the messages continue, what then? 14. The threat escalates. My phone buzzes again around midday. I lurch for it, half expecting a text from my wife or a further threat from the unknown number. It's from the unknown number. My heart feels like it's in my throat as I open it. We know you're looking. You won't find anything. Keep your mouth shut, or you'll lose her. My blood runs cold. They know I'm looking. Is that a bluff, or have they been watching me somehow? The house is locked, the curtains mostly drawn. I glance out the window, seeing only the rainy street. No strange cars parked out front, no lurking silhouettes. My stomach turns at the last phrase, or you'll lose her. Does that mean they'll tell her about my suspicions? Or does it imply something more sinister? I sit down, the phone clutched in my hand, so tightly my knuckles whiten. I type back furiously. Who are you? Why are you doing this? This time, I hit send with a force that nearly cracks the screen. I stare at the phone, waiting for the little ellipsis bubble that might indicate a response. It never comes. For long minutes, I just stare, heart pounding. Nothing. 15. Doubts and fears throughout the afternoon. I replay that threat in my mind. Keep your mouth shut, or you'll lose her. Could it be that this person is simply malicious, prying at my insecurities, hoping to ruin our marriage? I consider the possibility that maybe it's someone from her work, someone envious of her success or closeness with certain clients. But would they have knowledge of our old jokes about cheating? That's not exactly water, cooler talk. Another possibility seeps in. One that makes me feel nauseated. What if she is cheating, and the unknown number is the other person, or maybe a friend of the other person, trying to terrorize me so I don't dig deeper? Maybe they want to keep me in the dark for as long as possible. The scenario churns in my mind, leaving me with a twisting ache in my chest. By the time evening comes, I've worked myself into such an anxious state that I feel lightheaded. I've downed multiple cups of coffee, but barely eaten. Outside, the rain has cleared, replaced by the crispness of a late autumn day. The porch steps are still wet, the street glistens under the setting sun. I stand by the window again, scanning for her car. Eventually, headlights appear. This time, she comes home earlier than last night. My heart lifts involuntarily. I want to see her. I need to talk to her, to feel a sense of normalcy, or to finally uncover the truth. 16. The second confrontation, she steps inside with a faint smile, her hair slightly damp from the drizzle that picked up again on her drive home. She sets her purse on the table near the door. I notice her phone in her hand, the screen lit. I texted you, she says, Like I promised, but you never replied. Are you okay? I blink in confusion. My phone never notified me of a text from her. Pulling it out, I see no new messages. That's odd. Unless, could the unknown number have somehow blocked her messages? That seems far-fetched. Maybe it just failed to send or got lost in network lag. I didn't get any text from you, I say carefully, trying not to sound accusatory. But I got another text from that unknown number, a threatening one. Her eyes widen. She steps closer, concern etched on her face. Threatening how? I read it to her. Keep your mouth shut or you'll lose her. She draws in a sharp breath, looking genuinely alarmed. Who would write something like that? She murmurs, glancing around as if half, expecting an intruder to leap from the shadows. This is insane. She reaches out and squeezes my hand. Her palm feels clammy, mirroring my own anxiety. This moment of shared fear momentarily dissolves my suspicion of her. If she's acting, she's doing a hell of a job. I tried to think if there's anyone who'd want to mess with us. She continues, pulling me gently toward the living room. But all my coworkers are good people. I don't have enemies that I'm aware of. If this is a sick prank, it's going too far. We sit on the couch, side by side. For a long moment we don't speak. The hush of the house envelops us, punctuated only by the occasional drip from the eaves outside. I decide to muster courage. If there's anything, you need to tell me, please do it now. I won't be angry, I just need the truth. Her face is full of earnestness as she shakes her head. There's nothing like that. I swear. I am not, I haven't, I love you. I wouldn't hurt you like that. My chest constricts, not with suspicion this time, but with a mix of relief and heartbreak. Okay, I say quietly, letting out the breath I'd been holding. Okay. 17. Dinner and unusual quiet. We decide to eat dinner together in an effort to reclaim some normalcy. She insists on cooking this time. Something quick. A stir-fry of chicken and vegetables. I stand behind her in the kitchen, half watching her, half lost in thought. She glances over her shoulder from time to time, as if checking to be sure I haven't dissolved into a puddle of anxiety. When the food is done, we sit down to eat. The conversation is forced and unnatural. We make small talk about her day. Her staff meeting, a new protocol for intake procedures. I share nothing about my day, because what can I say? I spent it snooping around the house, trying not to succumb to panic. That doesn't exactly make for light dinner chatter. After we finish, she puts down her fork and studies me. I know this is terrifying, but maybe we can contact the police about these texts. Especially that threat. They might be able to trace the number. I consider it. If there's a legitimate threat, the police might at least file a report, maybe call the number. But part of me hesitates. Is there even enough for them to go on? And a more irrational part of me fears I'll look like a fool if the texts turn out to be a hoax. Still, a threat is a threat. Let's do it, I say finally, draining my glass of water. If we get another message, we'll have some evidence. She nods, relief in her eyes. I'll go with you. We can do it tomorrow afternoon, or maybe the next day if my schedule allows. I don't want this hanging over our heads. I manage a tight smile. Neither. But 18. A late-night revelation after dinner. We try to distract ourselves with a movie. Some action flick she picked. But halfway through, my phone buzzes. I pause the film and check. It's a text from the unknown number. My breath catches. Did you think we wouldn't find out you're going to the cops? Stop this now, or we will ruin everything. Cold sweat prickles at the back of my neck. My wife, seeing the look on my face, silently motions for me to read it out loud. When I do, her cheeks lose their colour, and she grips the couch cushion. No. I whisper, feeling a creeping sense of violation. They're monitoring us somehow. She glances around the living room, as if searching for hidden cameras or listening devices. How could they possibly? She cuts herself off, hugging her knees. Could it be someone we know, someone close to us? That's what I've been wondering all day. I admit. But I keep hitting a wall. We stare at each other in apprehensive silence. The only sound is the paused movie's hum on the streaming device menu, a quiet that feels pregnant with menace. 19. Trying to sleep again eventually, we give up on the movie and go upstairs. She changes first, and I wait in the hallway, half expecting my phone to buzz again. It doesn't. When I enter the bedroom, she's sitting on the edge of the mattress, elbows on her knees, face in her hands. "He," I say gently, sitting beside her. "We'll figure this out." She turns, and I see tears glinting in her eyes. "I just feel so violated," she whispers. "Our marriage is supposed to be sacred, private. Now it's like we're being watched or manipulated. I hate it." My chest tightens at her tears. I slip an arm around her shoulder, pulling her close. She rests her head on my chest, and I feel the rapid flutter of her heartbeat against me. "We won't let them tear us apart," I say, kissing the top of her head, "no matter who they harm us." She murmurs. "Promise?" I say, though inside I'm not entirely sure how we'll keep that promise. We lie down, the tension palpable in the darkness. She falls asleep before I do, though not as quickly as the night before. I feel her shift, toss and turn, eventually settling into uneasy slumber. I remain awake for hours, my mind racing with unanswered questions. My phone stays silent, as if the unknown number is daring me to try the police. 20. The next day's investigation the next day, a Saturday, she doesn't have work. We decide to head to the local police station to at least file a report, show them the texts, and see what they say. The whole drive there, we sit in pensive silence, each of us glancing at the phone perched in the cup holder. At the station, we wait in a cramped lobby for an available officer. The smell of stale coffee and disinfectant is strong. People come and go, some filing complaints, others apparently waiting on friends or family. The entire time, my wife grips my hand, her palms sweaty with anxiety. When our turn arrives, a young officer with a buzz cut and a polite but wary demeanor greets us. We sit at a small desk. I show him the texts, read them out loud, and explain how they started. My wife confirms that she has no idea who might be sending them. We mention the old cheating jokes, the odd specificity of the threats, and how the person somehow knew we were going to come to the police. The officer takes notes, nodding occasionally. "Unfortunately, it can be difficult to trace a number that might be spoofed," he explains. "But we can open a harassment case. If the texts escalate or cross over into credible threats, we can investigate further. We can also advise you on protective measures, like changing your number or installing cameras at your house." My wife's face falls. "So there's not much you can do right now?" He hesitates. "We can try to send a formal communication to the carrier. But if the number is unregistered or using an app, it might not lead anywhere. If you receive any more direct threats, like specifically threatening violence, call us immediately." We leave the station feeling only marginally relieved. At least there's an official record of the harassment now. That might deter whoever it is, if they realize we're not hiding, but the officer's caution that the texts might be untraceable weighs on us. Whoever is behind this could vanish without a trace, or keep tormenting us indefinitely. 1. Suspicion within driving home, she's unusually quiet. Eventually, she says, "Do you think it's possible that someone you know is behind this? An old friend from your side, not mine." I tense at the implied blame, shifting. "I guess," I say carefully. "But who? And how would they know about the jokes?" Her voice strains. "I don't know. I'm tired of feeling targeted. I feel like I can't trust anyone. And I hate to say it, but part of me wonders if you're hiding something." My pulse spikes. "What? Me? You think I'm behind these messages?" She bites her lip, as if struggling with the words. "No, that doesn't make sense. It's obviously not you, but are you sure you didn't tell a close friend about our inside jokes, and maybe they're messing with us for some twisted reason?" I exhale, trying to keep calm. "I never told anyone about those jokes. Not in detail, anyway. It's not the kind of thing I'd casually share. Would you? She shakes her head, eyes on the road. No, never. We fall silent again, the distance between us in the car palpable. Even though we're both victims, tension hums like an electrical current. The unknown number has succeeded, at least partially, in sowing seeds of doubt within our marriage. 22. A disturbing discovery back home, the day stretches on. We busy ourselves with chores, trying to distract from the undercurrent of worry. At one point, she starts sorting laundry in the bedroom while I decide to clean out the garage. A task I've been putting off for months. While rummaging through old boxes, I stumble upon something unexpected, a small notebook that I don't recognize. It's nestled in a box of random keepsakes. My heart flips. I pull it out, flipping through the pages. Most of them are blank, but near the middle, there's writing in a neat, feminine hand. My wife's handwriting is distinctive. Rounded letters, slight slant, but this looks similar, yet not exactly the same. Could it be older, from her teenage years, when her handwriting might have been different, or is it someone imitating her style? The pages that are written on contain cryptic notes. He'll never know if I'm careful, Must keep everything separate. No direct links to me. If cornered, I'll deny everything. My heart pounds so violently I can hardly breathe. The date at the top of the page is from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. That's not old teenage scribbling, that's recent. I feel dizzy. If this is truly her handwriting, does it mean she's planning something deceitful? Or is it possible the unknown number left this here to frame her, to break my trust further? My mind reels with the possibilities. I flip another page, seeing more. If confronted, feign ignorance. If threatened, threaten back. I nearly drop the notebook. The immediate reaction is heartbreak, like a lead bullet to the soul. She is lying. Everything she said, her earnest expressions, her tears, might be an act, yet a tiny spark of reason emerges. This handwriting is close to hers, but not a perfect match. The letters are somewhat more angular. Could someone be forging it, trying to manipulate me into believing she wrote it? I snap a picture of the notebook pages with my phone, my hands trembling so badly that I have to retake them to get clear shots. Then I carefully place it back where I found it. My mind is a tornado of confusion. If she's innocent, this is a plant. Someone is playing a twisted game. If she's guilty, then she's playing the game herself and has an accomplice helping her. Or maybe I'm losing my mind, imagining differences in the handwriting that aren't really there. 23. Walking on eggshells, I don't mention the notebook to her immediately. Instead, I finish in the garage and re-enter the house, feeling like a spy. She's in the living room, folding towels. She glances up, offering a small smile that looks more like a grimace. Garage done. I nod, swallowing hard. Yeah, mostly. She stands up, smoothing her jeans. Look, I've been thinking about what we can do. Maybe we should get out of town for a couple of days, take a break. Whoever is sending these texts might lose interest if we go off the grid for a bit. Her suggestion momentarily startles me. She wants to leave. Is that a sign of guilt, or is it a perfectly reasonable idea to escape the stress? My mind flickers to the sinister notebook in the garage. I still can't decide what it means. That might help, I say. But I worry they'll still text. And what if they do something else while we're gone? She sighs, her shoulders slumping. I don't know. I just hate this feeling of being trapped. Maybe I just want an excuse to run away, even if it's not the solution. I step closer, take her hand. I can't deny the genuine despair in her eyes. Either she's an award-winning actress, or she truly is as lost as I am. We'll figure it out, I say, repeating the reassurance for what feels like the 100th time. 24. The relentless unknown night comes again, and so does another message. This time it arrives as we're quietly reading in bed, she with a novel, me half-heartedly scrolling through social media. The phone's buzz slices through the stillness. My stomach lurches. I open the message. Nice try at the station. Too bad it won't help you. Remember our agreement? I read it aloud for her. She slams her book shut. Agreement? What the hell does that even mean? My heart hammers. I have no idea. I mutter, but dread coils in me. Is there some kind of agreement? One she made behind my back? Or is the unknown number just trying to further sow doubt? She grits her teeth. I'm sick of this. I'm blocking the number, she announces, picking up her phone. She's about to press a few buttons, but I stop her gently. They might just switch to another number, I point out, and we'll lose what little evidence we have if we block them. Her shoulders slump. Right. She sets her phone down, burying her face in her hands. I can see she's on the verge of tears again. I rub her back, wrestling with the urge to ask about the note in the garage. But fear of pushing her further away keeps me silent. If that notebook is real, and it's truly her words, confronting her might trigger a meltdown. If it's fake, I could be accusing her of something horrific without reason. Either way, it could shatter us. 25. A storm within eventually. She drifts into a fitful sleep. I remain awake, my thoughts swirling. I think about the lines in that notebook. Must keep everything separate. No direct links to me. What if she wrote those notes about how to cover up an affair? That would correlate with the messages. Or is that too on the nose, too obviously incriminating, like it's been planted to mislead me? I can almost hear my own heartbeat pounding in the darkness. I'm reminded of the lines from some psychological thriller we once watched. The easiest way to control someone is to make them doubt what they already know. That line resonates now. Could that be the unknown sender's plan? To make me doubt her, to make her doubt me. So we become paralyzed by suspicion. Around 3 a.m., I finally drift off into a troubled sleep, half expecting to wake up to more messages that drip poison into my ear. 26. Discovery and confrontation. The next morning, she leaves for a quick grocery run. While she's gone, I can't contain my curiosity any longer. I retrieve the notebook from the garage, place it on the kitchen table, and pore over the handwriting. My mind flicks back to every card, every note she's written me. Her handwriting is close to this, but not identical. It's the kind of difference that might go unnoticed if someone wasn't scrutinizing it. I rummage through the house, collecting old greeting cards to compare. After looking carefully, I become more convinced that the notebook's handwriting is a forgery. Certain letters, like the capital F and lowercase g, don't match her usual style. There's also something about the spacing that's off. I'm simultaneously relieved and more alarmed. If it's not hers, that means someone else wrote it to set her up, planted it in the garage. That implies this person has access to our home. A cold wave of terror washes over me. Are they breaking in when we're not here? Or even while we're asleep? My skin crawls at the thought. Nothing else is missing, I think. Why would they only leave a forged notebook? The answer is obvious: to drive a wedge between us, to escalate the suspicion and paranoia. My wife returns, juggling grocery bags. I rush to help, heart pounding. Once we've placed the bags on the counter, I decide to come clean. I found something in the garage, I say quietly. A notebook. Her brow furrows. A notebook. Yeah, I say, leading her to the kitchen table. I show her the pages. It has, well, incriminating lines. But the handwriting doesn't look exactly like yours, even though it's similar. She flips through it, color draining from her face. Oh my God, this is insane. It looks almost like mine, but not quite. You're right. She sets it down, a tremor in her voice. Who would do this? I rub my temples, tension sizzling through me. I think someone broke in, maybe more than once. They planted it to make me doubt you. Or to make us doubt each other. Her hand flies to her mouth. We have to call the police again. This isn't just text anymore. It's a break-in. Nodding, I pick up my phone. My heart bangs against my ribcage. I'll call. Let's calm down and do this properly. As I dial, she stands next to me, hands trembling. I can see tears forming in her eyes. Fear, betrayal, confusion, and deep down, relief from me that she doesn't seem to be the culprit. If she's acting, she deserves an Oscar, but I no longer think she's lying. Not about this. 27. Police and paranoia, we speak to the same officer from before, explaining the new development. He sounds concerned, urging us not to touch the notebook further, as it might have fingerprints or other evidence. He says they'll send someone to check for signs of forced entry and gather the notebook. For the next hour, we wait, hearts thudding, as if we're living in a crime drama. The officer eventually arrives, plus a partner. They dust for prints in the garage, take the notebook into an evidence bag. They check our locks and windows. Oddly, they find no obvious signs of forced entry, but note that some older windows might be easy to jimmy open if someone were persistent. The entire time, my wife and I stand close to each other, feeling simultaneously foolish for not noticing earlier and terrified that we're being targeted by someone cunning enough to hide their break-in. Before leaving, the officer says, "We'll do our best to find out who's behind this. Try to keep your phones on you at all times, and if you get more texts, let us know immediately. Also, consider changing your locks, maybe installing a security camera." We thank them, close the door, and stand in the entryway. The house feels different now, tainted, invaded. She turns to me, eyes full of anguish. "I want to go. I don't feel safe here." I swallow, feeling the weight of her words. We can't run forever. But maybe getting away for a few days might help us stay sane, at least until the police figure out something. She nods, tears threatening to spill. Yes, let's do it. 28. A plan to escape. We decide to drive out to a lakeside cabin owned by her cousin. It's a 3-hour trip. The cousin gave us the key ages ago, saying we could use it whenever we wanted a weekend away. We haven't visited in years, but it seems like the perfect hideout. We pack hastily. The atmosphere is charged, not with excitement, but with desperation. Are we really about to flee our own home because of a faceless tormentor? Yes, because we don't know what else to do, and the sense of being watched or possibly intruded upon is unbearable. Before leaving, I consider telling neighbours that we'll be gone, asking them to watch the house. But that feels risky. What if one of the neighbours is behind this? That might be paranoid. But paranoia feels warranted. We decide to leave quietly, only letting the police know the address where we'll be staying, in case something else happens. They make a note, but it's clear they still have few leads. The car is loaded, and we lock up behind us. She slides into the passenger seat, exhaling shakily. I ask, my fingers trembling on the ignition. She nods. "As ready as I'll ever be." 29. On the road, the drive to the cabin is tense, each mile taking us farther from home and deeper into uncertainty. I keep glancing at the rear-view mirror, half expecting to see a car following us. But the road behind is empty, except for the occasional truck or sedan that passes and continues on. She fiddles with her phone, switching it to silent. "No more messages so far," she says quietly. "Maybe the cops showing up scared them off," I suggest, though I don't really believe it. Rain starts to fall again, spattering the windshield. I turn on the wipers, focusing on the road. The drive winds through back roads, flanked by tall pine trees. By the time we reach the outskirts of the lakeside area, dusk is falling, painting the clouds with a faint orange glow. She offers to navigate the last few turns. We pull onto a gravel road, then follow it until it ends at a cozy wooden cabin on a slight rise overlooking the water. Lights are off, and it looks deserted, which is exactly what we want. She rummages in her purse for the cabin key. "Here," she says, handing it to me. We share a look, some mixture of relief, fear, and exhaustion. 30. The cabin's embrace. We step inside the cabin, flicking on a single overhead light that illuminates a small living area. There's a fireplace, a couple of worn couches, and a kitchenette to the left. The air is stale from disuse, but it feels safe for the moment. She sets down her bag and rubs her arms. "It's chilly in here. Let's see if the electricity and heat still work." I find the breaker box and switch on the heater. After a moment, I hear the hum of the vents. She checks the bathroom, then calls out that there's running water. Everything seems functional. We spend the next half hour bringing in our bags, groceries, bedding, and the few personal items we thought to grab. The entire time, I keep checking my phone. No messages. It feels too quiet, but I'm grateful for the reprieve. Eventually, we settle on the old couch, side by side, the cabin lamp casting warm shadows on the wooden walls. She leans her head on my shoulder, exhaling slowly. What do we do now? I let out a humorless laugh. Wait, I guess. Hope the police come up with something. Hope the texts stop. She rubs her eyes. We can't stay here forever, but maybe a couple of nights will clear our heads. 31. Night at the lake outside. The wind picks up, rustling the evergreens. The lake is hidden by darkness, but I know it's there. A vast, still body of water that mirrors the deep quiet we crave. We decide to open a bottle of cheap wine we brought, sipping in silence. The tension doesn't entirely dissipate, but there's a momentary sense of calm. I realize how exhausted I am from the ongoing stress, the sleepless nights. She's half, dozing on my shoulder, her breath warm against my arm. I brush a strand of hair from her face, feeling a wave of tenderness. In that moment, I vow to stand by her, no matter what. Eventually, we switch off the lights and head to the small bedroom, where we spread out our blankets. The wind outside moans softly, but inside it's quiet. We hold each other, letting the cloak of night lull us into a fragile sense of safety. 32. The final sting, near midnight, my phone vibrates loudly on the nightstand. Both of us jolt awake. I grab it, dread gnawing at my gut. The message from the unknown number reads, "You can hide in a cabin by the lake, but you can't escape the truth. Ready to lose her yet?" My wife sees it, her eyes widening in terror. "How did they know?" she whispers. "How could they possibly know we're at a lake?" The realization hits us simultaneously. We've been found. They must have some method of tracking us or gleaning information about our location. Or maybe they're just guessing, but that seems too coincidental. She clutches my arm. I can feel her trembling. My own heart thunders with panic. For a long time, we sit there in the dark, the phone's screen casting a ghostly glow. I force myself to reply, though my hands are shaking so badly it's hard to type. "What do you want from us?" I hit silence. The minutes tick by. No response. We cling to each other, the sense of vulnerability overwhelming. Despite the cabin's sturdy walls, it's as if the unknown threat seeps in through the cracks. After what feels like an eternity, she breaks the silence, voice quivering. "We'll call the police again in the morning. Let them know. Right now I just can't think straight." I nod, hugging her close. There's a hollow, sinking feeling in my chest. They know where we are. How is that possible unless they're following us, or we brought a tracking device, or our phones are compromised? In the pitch-black night, with only each other's presence to cling to, we realize the depth of this entanglement. The texts, the forging of her handwriting, the invasion of our home. They're all designed to isolate us, to break our trust, or perhaps to break me. But as she cries softly against my chest, I vow not to let that happen. I vow to hold on to her no matter what secrets or lies might lurk in the shadows. I vow to keep searching for the truth. Because if I lose that, I lose everything that ever mattered. And that, in the silent darkness of the lakeside cabin, is the only anchor I have left.